Good morning, Kennedy.
Good morning, James. How you doing?
I'm doing well, doing very well. I know you've got to be ready for another season, another NFL draft season over at drafttech.com.
I am. I'm getting excited. It's about that time of year where the combine's about to start. We're wondering about a lot of the prospects' height and weight and sort of how they're going to measure. And after that, it's kind of the grind of doing some shows and last film study before the actual draft comes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we'll kind of today get the big picture view of the NFL draft as we're still about a couple of months away from seeing some names go in the NFL draft. And like in previous years under Nick Saban and Alabama, Kennedy, you got to figure that Alabama's going to have quite a number of NFL prospects that are going to see their name called this season in the NFL draft.
No, absolutely. I count about 10 that I expect to go in the draft. There's a couple other guys that are probably going to get some camp invites, but there's 10 very solid guys who could actually contribute to a roster this year.
And let's go through some of those guys. First, to get your thoughts on star defensive lineman Jonathan Allen.
Jonathan Allen is a beast. He's 300 pounds, 6'3", and I'm sure you saw the Texas A&M game, but if you haven't, check it out, where he jumped over the Texas A&M back to sack the quarterback. Any 300-pound man that can jump over a running back or a fullback and tackle the quarterback is someone I want on my team. He's a freak. He's my second favorite player in the draft after Myles Garrett, but there's really no hole in his game. He'll stop the run. He's quick get off when the ball snaps, and he's just, I think from day one, going to be a force to be reckoned with in the NFL.
I tell you, you talk about the Superman play that he made at Texas A&M, and I'm just guessing. In fact, I know once that portrait comes out, Kennedy, that it's going to be in living rooms and homes all across the state of Alabama and the South. But another player that I want to get your comments on, this player that I thought might have been a little underutilized in his college days at Alabama at tight end, and that's O.J. Howard, that I've got to think has a lot of potential at the next level.
I love O.J. Howard. I hope that he ends up on a team where he can be utilized well. He came back to school, which I thought was a good idea. He really showed how well-rounded he is. He really showed his work ethic and how much he competes. That's the biggest thing that jumped out to me this year is he competed on a different level than he did last year. He finished blocks. He was the last guy going until the whistle. He actually often started a couple scuffles blocking, so he's very interested in blocking downfield. He also became more savvy in his routes. He sat down in zones better. I think that he has all-pro potential. He's 6'6". He'll win those jump balls. And like I said, he has the athleticism underneath to gain yards after the catch.
Another interesting player in the draft as far as from Alabama, Marlon Humphrey, that came out early. I thought a player that maybe you can make a case could have come back and used a little more seasoning, but he's projected, at least on drafttech.com and some other sites, as well as a first-round pick. Some of your thoughts on Marlon Humphrey?
He's up there with the top cornerbacks. I tend to be a little weary of Alabama corners just because the last few haven't worked out as highly as they've been picked. There's the argument that under Saban, they're coached up as much as they're going to be coached up, so that they might not have as high of a ceiling. But he has the bloodlines. He's good size, 6'1", almost 200 pounds. Right now, he's probably more suited to play in a zone scheme. So if he's going to play early on, you want to be able to have him in cover three and some hook zones underneath. But he does have the tools to develop it in a man scheme. So for right now, I protect him with some zones, and I think that he could live up to his billing as a top pick as a lockdown corner, maybe in a couple of years when he can kind of learn the ins and outs of playing man.
We're talking with NFL draft analyst from drafttech.com, Kennedy Paynter, on the Bud Light Hotline here on the Gary Harris Show. Now, if I remember correctly, Kennedy, I think you mentioned Cyrus Jones as one of the players coming out of last year's draft that you thought was going under the radar. As far as the Alabama players coming out for this year's 2017 draft, describe for us maybe a player or two that you think might be going under the radar that has a lot of potential at the next level.
Well, I think Ryan Anderson, I think he's still going to be a late first-round pick or early second-round pick. I don't think he's ever going to be an elite player at linebacker, but I think he's going to have a long 10, 12-year career where he's just a solid player. He can't tackle sideline to sideline, but he can go 3/4 of that, and he's a sure tackler. He's got a nonstop motor. He's smart. he's good at everything. He's not elite at anything, but he's good enough where he's going to make a football team, start on a football team, and just be a solid, don't have to ask questions about that guy kind of player.
And
as far as somebody under the radar, I like our Darius Stewart. He didn't. Again, they don't throw the ball a whole lot at Alabama. I think that he will be a solid number 3, possibly number 2 in the NFL. But I just think he has the size, the route savviness. He competes for the ball. He has good hands. I think that he's just a solid receiver. And I think maybe 4th round pick there, he could be a solid number 3 for a team like Green Bay or somebody who has a need for that player that can kind of doesn't take the top off the defense, but needs to sit down in the zones and find the areas to get open.
And you look at Alabama coming into what's another important process as far as that NFL draft process and the NFL Combine coming up in a couple of weeks at the end of the month and to begin the month of March, February 28th through March the 6th. 10 players from Alabama participating in that NFL Combine. A few of those that we've already mentioned in O.J. Howard and Ryan Anderson, along with Marlon Humphrey and others. Just from a big picture perspective, Kennedy, describe the importance of the NFL Combine when it comes to the NFL draft process.
I think for the most part, it doesn't matter as much as the fans and the media want it to matter. I think most scouts have their board set up, and they don't change a whole lot between now and the Combine. The things that they do is really, it confirms what you see on the film, but in the end, the play speed is really what matters. A lot of players might run a slow 40, but you see on tape that they can get sideline to sideline because of their football IQ or their off-snap quickness. So the times don't matter quite as much. If I'm going to look at something that's important, it's more the 3-cone, short shuttle, 10-yard split, and even the long jump. Those show the initial reaction time and the initial explosiveness of the athlete. So I think that is something that a lot of teams value that maybe people in the media and people watching the Combine don't care as much about. I think for some players it might hurt them. I mean, if you run an extremely slow 40, that might hurt you. The scouts are going to go back and look, wow, how did he run so slow? And if you're faster than that on tape, then scouts really do worry, why didn't you prepare more for this 40, knowing that you were going to run it? So it's kind of there's 2 parts to that. If this is really what you care about, then you should be ready for the Combine. And some players show up out of shape and not ready, and that's a red flag for scouts as well.
We're talking with Kennedy Paynter from DraftTech.com, our NFL draft analyst here on the Gary Harris Show. When you're evaluating talent for the NFL draft, what's the criteria that you use in evaluating NFL prospects?
I really look for smart guys. I'm not always going for the crazy athlete that is going to jump off the screen at you. Guys like Jonathan Allen do both. He's a very smart player. He's a studious player, and he has that freak athleticism. Myles Garrett as well. But I'm not, Tim Williams. I wouldn't touch him. He's supposedly has issues. We don't know. It's not official yet, but there might be some issues with drugs, and teams are going to stay away from that. It's just not worth taking the risk. I want the guy that's smart. I want the guy that you can put in any scheme, and he's going to be able to figure it out, and you're going to be able to work with him. Kind of like the New England Patriot way. You do your job. You know your job. I want those players that aren't going to complain, and they're just going to do what I ask them to do, and they also have that football IQ to figure it out.
Now, if we're watching a game, you mentioned a smart player. If we're evaluating a player, whether it's at the college or the NFL level, how can we tell, at least on the field, the characteristics of a smart player?
So it comes with tape study and understanding what someone's going to do to you. So let's say if you're a wide receiver, a smart wide receiver would see a defensive back standing with a certain leverage. And if they're giving you outside leverage, that means they're giving you the outside of the field. That's where they want you to go. So a smart receiver is going to fake outside and then come in because the defense is exposed in the middle, and that's why he's giving you outside leverage. From a middle linebacker position, it might be you just see a guy that slows downhill very quickly on a run play. He knows he times the snap well, and he can go from point A to point B without having to go through the trash of the offensive defensive line. So you just see these players, they're playing faster on film than anybody else, and that's how you can tell they're smarter because they're one step ahead. And really when you see that flash where somebody is just quicker than everybody else in the field, that's what I'm looking for.
Now I'm looking at the DraftTech.com's NFL mock draft currently, and at least in the top 3 you have Myles Garrett as the top pick for the Cleveland Browns and Jonathan Allen as the number 3 overall pick. When you talk about at least a prospect in the top 5, you're talking about, shall we say, a 5-star athlete at that position. I'm just wondering if what might separate, let's say, and I think you've touched on this earlier in the segment, the Myles Garrett and Jonathan Allen comparison. I wonder what might separate those two when it comes to that top 5 range of selections in the NFL draft.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're two different players. Jonathan Allen is that interior defensive lineman. He's going to play 3 technique if you're running a 4-3 or a sub package, and then if you're playing in a 3-4, he's going to be that outside defensive end. So he's more of a run stuffer. He uses power more, but the upside to him is that he can be that interior presence that also applies pressure. So I think that he can be an 8 to 10 sack guy from the interior, whereas Myles Garrett is that scary outside guy who's going to be able to bend the edge, get around the corner, and he's really probably the most explosive edge rusher we've had, maybe since Mario Williams coming out. He just knows how to get to the corner. He times the snap well, and his bend and his athleticism getting around the corner is just elite. And he reminds me a little bit of Von Miller, but he just has that initial step, and he can bend. He's almost parallel to the ground in some of his rushes. So that's the difference. He's more of a quick speed rusher, and Jonathan Allen's more of a power guy that can use his quickness inside. But it just depends on which player you're looking for.
Then projected, at least on drafttech.com right now, as for New Orleans as the number 11 pick is linebacker Reuben Foster. I'm interested. He had a great year for Alabama, helped lead the squad almost to a national championship. Like some of your thoughts, Kennedy, as far as Reuben Foster's potential at the next level.
I love Reuben Foster. He's one of my favorite middle linebackers to come out in a few years. I think he's got the sideline-to-sideline range. He's smart. He's a leader. You worry a little bit about the shoulder. It's happening now. We don't know a whole lot of information on it. We know he's getting surgery, but we're just not quite sure the extent to which he has, or even what it is necessarily the shoulder that's getting repaired. But he is going to be out until almost draft time, so we won't really get to see him work out. I'm hoping it actually drops him down to the Redskins as a Redskins fan, but I still doubt that he'll make it that far. I think he's going to be that solid middle linebacker for a long time wherever he lands.
So if you had to take a guess right now, I know it's still about a couple of months away from actual draft night in that series of rounds of the NFL draft. How many first-round picks do you think will come from Alabama this year?
Oof. If I had to guess, I would go, my over-under would be 4.5, and I might take the over at 5. I'd go with 5. Jonathan Allen, Reuben Foster, O.J. Howard are definite. Then you have Marlon Humphrey and Ryan Anderson that may. Cam Robinson likely will, so maybe even 6. Tim Williams, I'm thinking he's going to drop out of the first just because of the character red flag. And Marlon Humphrey's kind of right on that fringe, too. So I'd actually change that over-under to 5.5, and I might go up to 6.
Very interesting. I feel like we've just scratched the surface. Hopefully we'll have you again next Thursday. And thanks for joining us, Kennedy.
Yep, absolutely. And I'll talk to you then.